Hey, peace and blessings to you. My name is Jere B. I am the EntreMusician, and so are you. Welcome to another episode of the EntreMusician, where we engage, encourage, and empower each other. As you know, my passion is to help us musicians find and use our voice most appropriately in this ever-changing environment of the music industry. We need the mindset and discipline that helps us to succeed, and that's why we're here. Today we're going to talk about getting paid, okay? Good topic. I've given this a lot of thought. I've talked to a couple of musicians, and interestingly enough, there were some opposing views. I've been in some conversations here in the studio with some musicians who have come in, and then I received an email. But I thought, you know what? I've never really addressed head on musicians getting paid, because there's a plethora of opinions about how we as musicians are paid for the services that we render. It's really interesting. Before we get into that though, let's get into this. As you know, all of our videos are sponsored by the wonderful people at Vocal. Vocal is the only beverage on the planet which is designed to soothe, refresh, and restore your voice. We're just seconds away from launching the new Vocal. I shouldn't say we, but I feel so much a part of what's going on there that they are going to drop Vocal. You need Vocal if you use your voice for a living. Coaches, singers, preachers, motivational speakers, sportscasters, whoever you are, you need Vocal, because this is what's going to help. All right, let's talk about getting paid. I got this Facebook message, and it was an invitation. The invitation went, would you volunteer to be able to play some jazz in front of our establishment on the week of, while we do this festival? And I'm leaving the blanks in on purpose. I don't mean to, disrespect. I'm not going to put anybody on blast. But that was the email or Facebook message that came in. And it was from somebody that I know. Not very well, but I know them, and they know that we have a band, and they asked, you hear the wording, if we would volunteer. So you do your due diligence, and you go to the website of said festival, and you find out, oh, well, this is their 12th year, not this establishment, but, in this particular city, and all of the businesses get together, and they have this downtown fest, and, it is what it is, and you see the vendors there, you see the page of sponsors and whatnot, and you go, well, 12th year, I have to address the question of volunteering our service, because you see the other bands and other acts and artists who have played there before. And it's quite a community thing, but you also see that someone somewhere is making money, but the musicians, which happens frequently, are asked to volunteer their services. And there was a time, absolutely 100%, where I would have jumped on this just hands down, no problem. We're going to do this because why? We need the quote unquote exposure. And I've done so many exposure gigs. I've recorded a video about the 7 mistakes I've made as a band leader. Go back and check that out. But, not getting paid was a huge mistake that I've made early on in my band Sound Doctrine's career, not knowing the worth of our band, not knowing that our band was expanding. Now, Sound Doctrine at the moment is on hiatus. I'm recording this in August of 2018, but we're getting ready to start up the engine once again. I'm going to do another video to tell you why we're on hiatus, but today, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about getting paid. So I can call the musicians together and say, well, we're going to go and do this, but again, why? And why are so many musicians asked to do similar benefits without even an offer of, we can provide this for you, or we can pay you this, or this would be an honorarium, or what do you charge, or how can we even approach the subject of negotiation? Is generally just an exposure or this is a charity, or this is an establishment that, we kind of would need some music. And if you wouldn't mind bringing your guitar, it doesn't have to be, your whole band. Have you been there? It's just an hour if you would do this. But, by the time you lug all of the equipment there, you get everything set up, you have your PA system or whatever the situation is going to be. By the time that you do all of this, the gig might as well be 3 hours. Might as well be a full set, because why? You've done and taken the preparation and prepared for and done everything that it absolutely takes to make the gig happen. Yet at this time, there's no remuneration or honorarium that comes your way. Now, I'm telling you, in the conversations that I've had, there's been some pushback, especially in the area of charities. And, hear my heart, I'm not this money grubbing type of guy like, you need to make money at all ends. You need to, I'm not that. I am a fair-minded guy, but, the one thing I guess is, the age. I point to my beard because of the gray hair, but because of the mindset that I have approached some years back as a professional musician, that I am absolutely offering a service to you that is valuable for your needs, for the needs of your clients or your audience. We're going to present something that's going to be very strong, and it's going to be gratifying and satisfying to your spirit, because we're creating an atmosphere that your client, your audience needs. So with respect to that, I look at charities, and what I try to do is work out the most incredible win-win situation where we can still, as a band, be satisfied and still give back as we should. For example, so if they ask me to volunteer, I say, well, no, we're not able to volunteer, but we really do support whatever organization or charity it is. So have you any type of budget that you are able to work with? And so once I find out if there's any dollars available that can be pulled from maybe even another department or something that they were not thinking, and 90% of the time there is when they want you and you ask about it. So with respect to that, here's what we can do. Based on the amount of X money that they have, what we can do is we usually do it for whatever the price that you usually do it for. And we'll do it for a percentage lower of that. And I've even done up to 50% of that. So we usually do this, and that's not quite where you are, but I'll tell you what. If you can do this, if you can meet us halfway, then we as a band, we will donate 10% of that back into the charity. So you begin to create scenarios where you have an opportunity to supply your guys and gals with what they actually need. And, of course, we've talked about this, and the charity knows that we are for the event. We are supporting the cause, and we are making ourselves available. So those are some ways that we have found that works for us. The whole dynamic is getting paid. Now, we're going to do some interviews with a couple musicians. I'm not going to name them now, but we already have them on slate to talk about one of the aspects of pay to play, which is something that I've never done before. I mean, our band has played in New York a couple times. That seems to be one of the biggest places where those clubs are pay to play clubs. I do know musicians who have paid to play. I know some who is worked for them, is getting them the exposure that they've sought after, and others is not fared out so well for their bottom line. So there are two ends of the spectrum on that. But again, in my aging process, I've thought that a musician, well-respected, and it doesn't matter their level, whether they're like A-level here, Grammy Award-winning, whatever, or they're just very good at their craft and they have a reputation that precedes them, that they should get something. Now, it's amazing to me how many musicians don't feel that they're very good. I mean, I've talked to hundreds of musicians who are like, well, we did the gig, but we're not that very, we're just starting out, or I'm not very good, so I went ahead and did this. And you find out that this cat did 30 dates free. Of course, the venue or the promoter or whomever is saying, well, he don't think he's very good, but we need to fill that 45-minute slot. And so we gave it to him, and he pretty much gave his time away. And maybe he feels that, he's just rehearsing or honing his craft. But I think, if you ask for just a few dollars for it, whatever level you feel you're on, you should do it. Another thing is I want to talk about church musicians, being that I grew up in the church as a little drummer boy and grown up. I will say absolutely, and I'm going to speak from both sides of the spectrum here, being that I am now a pastor. I'm going to speak from the church side as well as speak from the musician side, because being a church musician and running in those circles, it's amazing how discontented a lot of church musicians are. And because they haven't broached the real conversation with the pastor or with the elder board or whoever's making the decisions concerning what is a fair and right thing to do for them. Now, I'm going to give you an example from my childhood, early teens, 13, 14, 15. We had an incredible band at the particular church I was playing at in that time. And I will say this, let me say this first, that the church environment for you church musicians, this, is one of the absolute best breeding grounds for musicianship, especially if you're coming up in the ranks and you see those who are older than you and you have that access to them up close and personal to learn those licks, to get that vibe down, to learn how to play as a unit, to learn how to follow directions from the choir director or the music director, and how to play within the pocket. And then when it's time to go all out because the spirit is really high, it's an absolute breeding ground. But here's what happened when we were coming up, and we had this incredible band, and so there was one elder sister there, God bless her, she's in heaven right now, but she would always tell us as young musicians coming up, you better not be playing that devil music. You better make sure that you are just dedicated to the Lord and that you're doing your thing for Him, and don't be out there with that boogie jive. Don't be playing that stuff, And it's interesting because as I grew up in that, there was one service where they had us all dedicate our instruments to the Lord. So now these instruments can't be played for any other genre of music. And she specifically called it devil music, other than, playing in church and in the church environment, playing quote-unquote gospel music and another. And that was always a conflict for me, because at home I practiced with Lakeside and Confunction and Cameo and the Ohio Players. That's actually how I was helping to hone my chops to bring it back to make a dynamic work in the church setting. Another thing was, as I got older, 15, 16, I really had some conflicts because, she was saying, well, don't be out there playing that type of music, that devil music. But, hear my heart here. I was saying, well, the devil pays. That was just my personal tightrope. I was walking I did a gig over here and I got paid for it. But the church, quote unquote, the church is not paying me anything. So how do you have this revolving door of musicians who are just coming in and out of this context, but you have not offered anything to them to help draw them and to honor them for the craft and honor them for the skills and talents that they are bringing to your setting? And so, that really kind of stuck with me. And still, after I put Sound Doctrine together in 2002, I did way more than my share of promotional gigs, as I said, for the exposure. So, but going back into that church environment, now you on the side of just being the church musician, from that standpoint, you can have a very frank conversation depending on how many hours they need you to be there, how many rehearsals they will be having for how many choirs, because there are some churches with multiple choirs or multiple praise and worship teams that hit on different service times, and how many are you involved in. And if you're doing it for the Lord, hear me, if you're doing it from your heart and you're saying, well, this is something that I just enjoy, I'm growing in this, perhaps, pastor, or perhaps elder, you can provide me with $10 a week. Okay, now check that out, $5 a week. Okay, so $5 a week is $20 a month, or $40 a month if it's $10 a week. Okay, roughly in that regard, then this whole economy of sowing and reaping has an opportunity to take root, because with that $5 I can tithe off of that, and I can go buy myself a Wendy's sandwich for lunch or whatever, and I am being blessed because I'm tithing, and because you're being blessed because you're honoring me with whatever. Now I know that sounds like a ridiculously low price, but I'm saying if we as musicians just adopt the mindset that we should be honored for the service that we render. Because even in a church setting, although it's 85-90% sometimes volunteerism, and I get it, this is a side that I'm talking on from the pastoral perspective, I get it. We do need volunteers, and everything is not about payment, but if there's something that's going on in our service that's so essential to the atmosphere and making sure that the people are being fed, music is a huge part of that. So what do we set to the side in our budget to make sure that our musicians, our praise and worship leaders, our choir directors, etc., are honored accordingly? And so that's the most sensitive way that I could possibly say that. But when you look at it, it's about getting paid. When you think of yourself as a professional musician, it doesn't matter whether you have a 9 to 5, but if you're gigging Thursday through Sunday and whatever that is, it's cool to get paid. It's cool to have a few dollars that you can put in your pocket for the time, the practice, the rehearsal, and all of the work that goes into being a professional musician. So I just wanted to kind of dabble in that. I would love to know your thoughts. I could be here another 10 minutes explaining the different conversations that I've been in, but I won't. But it's all points of the spectrum. There are some musicians that say, oh no, so they would take an email or a Facebook message like I explained earlier and go, hey, absolutely, we're on it. And yes, we'll be there. And we're just doing it for the joy of music. I get it. That's cool. But when you're looking to move the needle a little bit, move the needle. Be confident enough to say, I am a professional, and any other professional, doctor, attorney, consultant, whomever, will get paid for what he or she provides. And this is my craft, and I deserve to be paid for what I provide. Think about that. Put your comments below. I'd love to see what you have to say about it. I'm just speaking from my heart. There's no other place to speak from, and from the experiences that I had. I am so grateful that you took the time to watch this video. Please go to the EntreMusician.com. That's where the real work happens. You can see the growing number of EntreMusicians on our EntreMunity page. You can sign up for free and get our free ebook called 50 Engaging Ways to Turn Your Fans into Family. You will absolutely love it. Great tips for you and your artistry. So grateful that you hung out with me today. My name is Jere B. I am the EntreMusician, and so are you. We'll see you next time.